The floating city of Xylaria shimmered under the pale green light of its twin suns. Spires of silver and glass floated gracefully above the clouds, connected by bridges that seemed almost alive, shifting gently as if breathing with the wind. This city, a crown jewel of the Xylarian Empire, was a place of advanced science and culture, where beings from countless star systems gathered to share knowledge and display their skills. Today, the city was filled with excitement and whispers of curiosity. Visitors had come from far and wide, not for a festival, but for a tournament. But this was no ordinary tournament. It was a demonstration meant to show the abilities of a species barely known beyond its own fragile planet humans. Lena, a young Xylarian noble, floated along the pathways of the arena, her silver robes trailing behind her like liquid light. She had hair like spun platinum and eyes that reflected the color of Xylaria's upper sky, a blend of awe and arrogance in equal measure. She had grown up hearing stories of humans, stories that described them as weak, primitive, and amusingly fragile. For Xylarians, humans were creatures of curiosity at best, entertainment at worst. As she arrived at the central arena, she looked down at the gathered humans. There were 5, all seemingly ordinary. They wore simple clothing that looked rough compared to the elegant designs of the Xylarians. Their weapons were crude, at least by alien standards: wooden spears, slings, and simple shields made of earth materials. Among them stood a man whose posture was calm, almost unassuming, yet there was something about the way he carried himself that drew Lena's attention. He did not boast or show fear. He simply observed. "Look at them," Lena whispered to her companion. "A Xylarian scholar named Terran. Do they really expect to survive even one trial? They are nothing more than fragile humans. Watch how they fail and entertain us." Her words carried laughter, lightly dismissive, yet tinged with curiosity she did not fully understand. Terran adjusted his spectacles, his multiple eyes reflecting her disdain. "Perhaps. But humans have always surprised in small ways. Do not underestimate the unpredictable." Lena snorted. "Unpredictable? Their greatest skill is falling gracefully." She floated higher, leaning over the edge of the viewing platform to get a better look. The tournament was about to begin. The arena was immense, a marvel of Xylarian engineering. Platforms floated in the air, each one presenting a different challenge. Some required mental agility. Others demanded physical skill or strategy. The first trial was a test of balance and observation. Contestants had to cross a series of moving platforms suspended over nothing but clouds, with sensors tracking every movement for precision. Xylarian participants moved with effortless grace, their advanced training making each step predictable and elegant. Orion, the human warrior, approached the first platform with quiet determination. Unlike the others, he did not rush. He studied the moving shapes carefully, his brown eyes sharp and focused. He took a deep breath, feeling the wind brush against his face, the faint scent of ozone from the energy fields surrounding the platforms. Then, step by step, he moved forward. Lena watched with a mixture of amusement and skepticism. Each step he took seemed awkward, slow, even clumsy. One of the floating platforms swayed more than the others, and she expected him to stumble, but he adjusted his weight instinctively, finding the right balance. A ripple of surprise passed through the audience. The humans around him hesitated, unsure of the mechanics, but Orion continued, calm and observant. "Interesting," Lena muttered under her breath. "He may actually make it across." She leaned closer, her previous mockery giving way to curiosity. When Orion reached the final platform, he looked back at the starting point and realized something remarkable. Despite his lack of advanced training, he had understood the rhythm of the platforms and adapted naturally. The audience erupted in applause not for his strength, but for the elegance with which he solved a problem they assumed would be impossible for a human. Next came a trial of intellect. Contestants faced a holographic puzzle that changed its form with every movement, testing their reasoning and adaptability. Xylarians manipulated it quickly, relying on algorithms implanted in their minds. But Orion studied the patterns with a different approach. He did not rely on speed or memorization. He observed, experimented, and learned from each small mistake. Slowly, piece by piece, he unlocked the solution. When the final segment clicked into place, there was a silence, then a cheer. Humans had solved something that the Xylarians assumed was beyond them. Lena's laughter from earlier had faded entirely. She found herself leaning forward, eyes wide, heart quickened by an unfamiliar feeling. The human in front of her was not simply surviving. He was excelling in ways she did not understand. The final trial was a test of teamwork. Contestants had to navigate a maze filled with obstacles that could only be overcome through communication and cooperation. Other humans faltered at first, unsure of how to coordinate. But Orion stepped forward with quiet confidence. He guided his teammates with patience, listening to their strengths and finding ways to combine them effectively. Slowly, they moved as a single unit, overcoming challenges with ingenuity rather than force. Lena felt a shift inside her. She had come expecting entertainment, expecting to laugh at the humans' failures. Instead, she was captivated. She had underestimated something that could not be measured by technology or training: the subtlety of human intelligence. Their ability to think differently, to adapt, to inspire one another. After the trials, the humans were called to the central platform to receive acknowledgement from the audience. The Xylarian queen herself observed from her elevated throne. Her gaze, thoughtful. The humans stood quietly, their posture humble, but there was a quiet strength in their presence that no one could deny. Lena felt a mixture of shame and fascination. She had mocked this human, expecting failure. And instead, he had revealed a capability that challenged everything she had been taught. Her mind raced, trying to understand him, to comprehend the unexplainable resilience that he seemed to carry effortlessly. As the crowd dispersed, Lena found herself floating closer to Orion, unable to resist the curiosity that pulled her forward. "Tell me," she said softly, careful not to reveal too much, "how did you know what to do?" Orion looked at her, brown eyes calm and unwavering. "I did not know," he replied simply. "I observed, I learned, and I tried. I do not know if it is skill or luck. I only know that giving up solves nothing." Lena blinked. His words were simple, but they carried a weight she had never encountered among her own people. They spoke not of arrogance, but of quiet strength. She felt an unfamiliar respect, tinged with awe. As she turned to leave, Terran's voice echoed in her mind. "Humans may seem fragile, Lena, but you are witnessing the beginning of something extraordinary." Lena did not answer. Her mind was occupied by Orion's calm determination, his ingenuity, and the way he had challenged everything she thought she knew. For the first time, she wondered what it would mean to truly see the value in a being she had always dismissed. That night, as Xylaria's twin moons rose, casting a silver glow across the floating city, Lena could not stop thinking about the human warrior. She wandered alone along the observation bridges, the wind playing with her robes, the stars above endless and mysterious. Somewhere far across the galaxy, humans lived simple lives, unaware of the worlds they would one day touch. Orion had shown her that greatness could come in any form, and that sometimes, the smallest spark could light the way for an entire civilization. And for Lena, that spark was a human. After the tournament, Xylaria slowly returned to its usual rhythm. The floating platforms and sparkling spires shimmered under the twin suns, and the markets were alive with traders, inventors, and scholars from countless worlds. Yet for Lena, nothing felt ordinary. Her thoughts kept returning to Orion, the human warrior who had defied every expectation. She had mocked him once, yet he had revealed a skill, intelligence, and calmness that she could not stop admiring. She spent her days walking among the floating gardens and libraries, attempting to focus on her studies. But every lesson felt dull compared to the image of Orion solving impossible challenges with ease and patience. He had approached each trial not with arrogance, but with quiet observation and creativity. She had never seen anything like it among the Xylarians, a race renowned for intelligence and precision. One morning, Lena found herself at the central plaza, where humans and Xylarians had gathered for discussions about interspecies knowledge. Orion was there, speaking quietly with his fellow humans. She noticed the way they listened to him, their eyes bright with understanding and trust. He was not a leader by title, but by presence. Each suggestion he made inspired cooperation, rather than competition. Lena floated closer, trying to understand the man behind the human body. She realized that his strength lay not in technology, training, or alien advantage, but in something far deeper, a gift for seeing the value in others and bringing it together. It was a skill she had never possessed, though she had always considered herself clever and capable. "Why do they follow you so willingly?" she asked Terran, who had joined her at the plaza. Terran smiled faintly. "Orion does not command with force. He inspires with understanding. Humans often excel where others expect them to fail. It is a quality of their species. You are witnessing the true spirit of humanity." Lena frowned. "Spirit? That sounds vague." Terran chuckled. "It is not vague. Watch carefully. He listens, learns, and adapts. He notices small details that others overlook. His value is not in strength but in insight. That is why he succeeds." Over the next few days, Lena observed Orion closely. She saw him notice tiny shifts in the environment, subtle changes in the behavior of alien species, and moments when one simple suggestion could solve a problem that had confused even the most intelligent Xylarians. It fascinated her. She had mocked his simplicity. Yet it was this simplicity that allowed him to see solutions others could not. One afternoon, a challenge was announced. A collaboration exercise between humans and Xylarians. Teams had to design a small device to help maintain the floating city's balance during sudden windstorms. The Xylarian teams quickly began applying their precise calculations and advanced tools. The humans hesitated, unsure of where to start. Orion approached his team with a calm smile. "We do not need to match their technology," he said. "We need to understand the problem first. Let's watch the patterns of the wind, see how the platforms move, and then decide what is needed." The humans worked together, guided by Orion's quiet observation, while the Xylarian teams relied on complex algorithms. Orion and his team used simple materials, combining their observations with creativity and careful thinking. Slowly, they created a device that absorbed wind energy and distributed it evenly, stabilizing the platforms. When the results were demonstrated, the Xylarians were stunned. The humans had succeeded using ideas that were unconventional but effective. Lena could hardly believe her eyes. She had thought the humans would fail, yet they had achieved something her people had considered impossible. She felt a surge of respect, tinged with envy. Orion's calm, thoughtful approach contrasted sharply with the pride and rigidity of the Xylarian participants. Later, Lena approached Orion again, curiosity driving her forward. "How do you see things differently?" she asked, her voice softer than before. Orion looked at her, brown eyes steady. "I try to understand, not to impress. I notice what matters, and I try to connect what others miss. It is not magic, only patience and observation." Lena considered his words. They were simple, yet they carried a depth she could not ignore. She realized that intelligence alone did not always lead to success. Sometimes, humility, patience, and the ability to adapt mattered more. Over the following weeks, Lena's admiration for Orion grew, though she struggled to accept it fully. She had always considered herself superior. Yet the human before her challenged every assumption she had held. She noticed how Orion treated everyone equally, listening to humans, aliens, and Xylarians alike. He valued their ideas, encouraged their contributions, and turned small successes into collaborative triumphs. The humans' influence began to ripple through the city. Aliens and humans who had been distant or skeptical now found ways to cooperate. Even the Xylarian engineers started to consider the simpler, more creative approaches Orion suggested. It was as if his presence had reminded everyone that the greatest solutions often came from combining different perspectives, rather than relying solely on advanced technology. Lena watched this transformation with fascination. She had never seen the Xylarian Empire change so quickly. Not from force or authority, but from one individual who refused to see others as inferior. Orion was teaching lessons in humility and creativity, without even trying. One evening, Lena found herself standing on a high bridge, overlooking the glowing city. The lights reflected in the clouds below, and the hum of energy from the floating platforms filled the air. Orion approached quietly, as if sensing her thoughts. "You have been watching closely," he said, not as a question but as a statement. Lena nodded. "I cannot help it. I thought humans were weak, predictable. And yet, you continue to surprise me." Orion smiled faintly. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as they seem. We see the world differently. We do not always rely on the strongest tools or the fastest solutions. Sometimes, understanding and patience are stronger than power." Lena considered his words. She realized she had learned more from observing him than from any lesson in the Xylarian academies. The humans' achievements were not about dominance or strength. They were about connection, insight, and the courage to keep trying when others gave up. Over time, Lena began to question the assumptions she had held about her own people. She had valued speed, precision, and control above all else. Yet Orion's success demonstrated that creativity, empathy, and perseverance could surpass even the most advanced technology. She began to understand that greatness was not limited to those born into privilege or trained in elite academies. It could emerge from anyone who saw possibilities others ignored. As the collaboration exercises continued, Lena found herself seeking Orion's guidance and opinions, sometimes openly, sometimes silently. She no longer felt the need to mock or belittle him. Instead, she felt a deep curiosity and admiration, coupled with the realization that humans, though different, could teach even the most advanced civilizations important lessons. One day, a minor crisis arose when a sudden storm caused one of the floating platforms to sway dangerously. Panic spread among the participants. The Xylarians tried to rely on their calculations, but the storm's unpredictability made their methods ineffective. Orion calmly assessed the situation. He instructed humans and Xylarians to work together, combining their knowledge and observation. Slowly, under his guidance, the platform stabilized, and the crisis passed without harm. Lena was astounded. She had expected chaos. Yet Orion's leadership turned fear into cooperation. She felt a mixture of relief and wonder, realizing that this human possessed qualities that even she, a noble of the Xylarian Empire, had never seen. That evening, Lena reflected on the day's events while gazing at the stars beyond the city. She realized that Orion's human perspective, shaped by a simpler life on a distant planet, had allowed him to see solutions the Xylarians could not. The more she observed him, the more she understood that his strength lay not in muscle or weaponry, but in mind, heart, and the ability to bring out the best in others. As she drifted to sleep that night, Lena felt a sense of anticipation and excitement she could not explain. The human warrior had challenged everything she thought she knew about her species, her world, and herself. He had shown her that greatness could take many forms, and that humility, patience, and ingenuity were as powerful as any technology. In her dreams, she saw visions of humans and Xylarians working together, building a future where differences were celebrated, and intelligence was measured not by power alone, but by creativity, empathy, and the courage to try. She realized that she had witnessed the beginning of a new era, and that Orion, the quiet human who had once seemed so fragile, was at its center. And for Lena, the journey of understanding had only just begun. The days after the collaboration exercises were filled with curiosity and quiet wonder. The humans, guided by Orion, were no longer seen as mere participants in a tournament. They were becoming an inspiration. Lena noticed this change every time she walked through the floating gardens or the bustling marketplaces. Aliens and Xylarians alike sought out Orion's guidance, eager to understand the simple yet extraordinary methods he used to solve complex problems. Despite all this, Orion himself remained humble. He did not seek attention or praise. When approached by alien engineers with questions about the floating city's stability, he would listen carefully, nod, and offer ideas based on observation rather than elaborate theories. It was a method so different from the Xylarians' usual approach that even the most experienced scholars found themselves reconsidering their assumptions. Lena often found herself floating nearby, watching him with quiet fascination. She could not deny the admiration she felt growing stronger each day. Orion's intelligence was different. But it was not just that it was the way he treated others, how he inspired confidence, and how his calm presence seemed to resolve tension before it could take root. One afternoon, Lena approached him directly. The sun cast a soft green glow over the city, and the wind shifted gently, brushing against her robes. "Orion," she said, "I have been thinking about how you solve problems. There is something unusual about your approach. It is unlike anything I have seen." Orion looked at her with his calm brown eyes. "I do not know if it is unusual. I only try to see what others do not notice. Sometimes, what seems simple is the solution that works best." Lena considered this for a moment. She had spent her life training in advanced techniques, memorizing complex equations and algorithms. And yet she had never seen results like those Orion achieved. "It is remarkable," she admitted softly. "You see connections that others miss. You notice things that even our best minds overlook." "One," Orion nodded. "Perhaps. Or perhaps it is because I have learned to listen to what is around me, rather than what I am told to see." The words lingered in Lena's mind long after their conversation ended. There was a humility in him that contrasted sharply with the pride of the Xylarian nobles. He did not need to prove himself. His value was in understanding, in connecting, in noticing the unseen. And that, Lena realized, made him extraordinary. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, a message arrived from the Xylarian queen. It was an invitation to a private audience. Lena's heart quickened. She had never been summoned by the queen before, and the presence of humans in her audience was unusual. With Orion by her side, she felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The throne room was larger than anything Lena had imagined. Crystals floated in the air, reflecting light across the polished floors, and the queen sat upon a throne that seemed carved from the stars themselves. Orion and Lena stepped forward, bowing respectfully. The queen's eyes, sharp and deep, studied them intently. "Orion," she began, her voice resonant and commanding, "you have performed beyond expectation. Your methods, your insight, and your ability to inspire cooperation are unlike anything we have seen. Yet your presence here is no accident." Orion tilted his head, curious but calm. "I do not understand," he said softly. The queen's gaze softened, and for the first time, Lena saw a gentleness in her that was unexpected. "There is a truth you have not known," the queen said. "A truth about your origins, which has remained hidden for centuries." Lena's breath caught. She felt a strange tension, a sense that everything she thought she knew about this human was about to change. The queen continued, her voice steady. "Orion, you are not merely human. You are my child. Long ago, I sent you to Earth for protection, knowing that our enemies would seek to harm you. Time and circumstance have kept this secret, but now the truth must be revealed." Orion blinked, shock evident in his eyes. For a moment, he seemed to struggle with disbelief. My parent? A Xylarian?" The queen nodded. "Yes. Your human life has given you qualities that even I could not preserve. Your empathy, creativity, and ingenuity are the results of your human upbringing. Yet your lineage is Xylarian. You carry both worlds within you." Lena felt her mind spin. The warrior she had watched, the one she had mocked, was not only extraordinary in spirit and skill, he was of Xylarian blood. The realization changed everything. She looked at Orion anew, seeing him not just as a human, but as a bridge between two civilizations, one that combined the strengths of both species. Orion remained silent for a long moment, processing the revelation. Then he spoke, his voice steady but thoughtful. I did not know. I grew up on Earth, unaware of any other life beyond my planet. And yet, perhaps that is why I am here. Perhaps my life as a human has given me the perspective I needed to understand both worlds. The Queen smiled. You have learned lessons that even Xylarians could not. That is why you have succeeded in ways others could not. Your humanity has shaped you, but your Xylarian heritage gives you the potential for even greater influence. Lena's eyes filled with wonder. She had expected to be impressed by Orion's skill, by his intelligence, but now she realized there was an even deeper layer to his abilities. They were not simply learned, they were born from the combination of two worlds, each contributing something unique. Lena, the Queen said, turning her gaze toward her, you have observed Orion closely. You have seen his strength, his patience, and his ability to unite those around him. You understand now why he is extraordinary, and you must remember this lesson. Greatness can appear in forms you least expect. Lena nodded, her heart racing. She had never felt such a mix of awe, respect, and humility. She had mocked Orion once, yet now she recognized that he embodied qualities that even she, a Xylarian noble, could admire deeply. The Queen's voice softened further. Orion, your journey is only beginning. There is much for you to learn about your heritage, and much for others to learn from you. Your presence here is a gift, not just to humans, but to all who share this galaxy. Orion looked out over the throne room, his mind turning over the revelation. For a lifetime, he had believed himself ordinary, a human among humans. Now he understood that he carried within him the potential of a civilization far older and more advanced than his own. Yet he also realized that his human upbringing, his experiences on Earth, had shaped him in ways no Xylarian training could replicate. He was both worlds, yet entirely his own. Lena, floating beside him, felt a quiet pride. She had watched him grow, not as a superior being, but as a human who had achieved greatness through patience, observation, and empathy. And now she understood the depth of what she had witnessed. Orion's power was not in dominance, nor in technology, nor in strength. It was in understanding, in kindness, and in the ability to see solutions where others saw only obstacles. In the following days, Lena found herself more determined than ever to learn from him. She observed how he continued to inspire cooperation among humans and Xylarians, how he listened, guided, and encouraged, without seeking control. It was a leadership unlike any she had known, gentle yet effective, and it fascinated her. The revelation of Orion's parentage added a new dimension. He was no longer simply a human warrior. He was a symbol of possibility, a living proof that the strengths of different worlds could combine in ways that surpassed expectation. Lena felt a responsibility to help him, not out of obligation, but out of admiration and respect. She wanted to understand the lessons he carried, and perhaps to share them with others in her world. One evening, as the twin moons rose and bathed the city in silver light, Lena approached Orion again. I understand now, she said softly. You are not just a human, and yet your humanity is what makes you extraordinary. I am honored to witness it. Orion looked at her and smiled faintly. It is not about honor. It is about learning, observing, and connecting. That is all I have done. If others benefit from it, then that is enough. Lena nodded, her mind swirling with admiration and thought. She realized that she had underestimated not only Orion, but the potential of humans as a species. They had creativity, resilience, and ingenuity that even the most advanced civilizations could not fully predict or control. Orion had revealed what was possible when humility, observation, and empathy combined with courage and determination. That night, as she floated alone above the city, Lena gazed at the stars, stretching across the sky. She thought of Orion, of the hidden truth of his heritage, and of the lessons he had already taught her. She understood that the story of humans and Xylarians was only beginning, and that the greatest journeys were not always the ones measured in distance or technology, but in understanding, collaboration, and the courage to embrace what is unknown. And for Lena, the journey of admiration, learning, and respect was far from over. She had seen greatness where she least expected it, and she knew that the lessons of Orion's life would echo across her own, guiding her toward a new way of seeing the galaxy, one in which differences were celebrated, and the smallest spark could illuminate the path for countless beings. The city of Xylaria glowed softly under the twin moons, their light reflecting off the floating spires and shimmering bridges. The events of the past weeks had changed the city and its people in ways no one had anticipated. The humans, guided by Orion, had become more than guests or curiosities. They were now symbols of innovation, patience, and the strength of unity. Lena floated above the central plaza, watching the city bustle below, her mind alive with thought and reflection. She had come a long way since the first day she mocked Orion. She remembered the laughter she had shared with Terran as she pointed at the clumsy human, thinking him weak and ordinary. Now, those memories felt distant, almost foolish. Orion had revealed lessons in patience, empathy, and ingenuity that had reshaped her understanding not only of humans, but of herself. Orion stood nearby, calmly observing a group of humans and Xylarians collaborating on a new energy device for the city. He moved among them with quiet confidence, listening, guiding, and encouraging. His presence inspired cooperation, his gentle words sparked ideas, and his patience turned confusion into clarity. Lena watched him and felt a deep admiration, not for strength or power, but for the quiet brilliance of his mind and heart. The Xylarian queen had summoned Orion for a council meeting that evening. Lena was to accompany him, not as a messenger or attendant, but as a witness to the influence he had begun to hold over her world. The queen's chambers were vast, with floating orbs of light that shimmered like stars, and walls that displayed scenes of galaxies in motion. Orion and Lena stepped forward together, bowing respectfully. The queen studied them for a long moment, her eyes reflecting centuries of knowledge and wisdom. "Orion," she said, "you have demonstrated not only your abilities, but the potential of combining human insight with Xylarian knowledge. Your approach has reminded us of the value of observation, empathy, and creativity. Now, it is time to take the next step." Orion's calm expression did not change, but Lena noticed a spark of curiosity in his eyes. "What is the next step, Your Majesty?" he asked quietly. The queen smiled. "A new alliance is to be formed. Humans and Xylarians will work together in ways never before attempted. You, Orion, will be the bridge between our worlds. Your heritage is unique, and your life experience has prepared you to lead in this unprecedented endeavor." Lena's heart raced. She had already admired Orion, but the queen's words confirmed what she had come to realize on her own. Orion was extraordinary. His humanity, combined with his Xylarian lineage, made him capable of uniting two civilizations in ways others could not imagine. Over the following days, Lena observed Orion as he guided meetings, listened to concerns, and encouraged collaboration. He did not rely on commands or authority. He relied on understanding. He asked questions, sought different perspectives, and helped others see solutions that had been hidden by complexity. The Xylarians, accustomed to rigid protocols and precise calculations, were amazed. They had never encountered a being who could bridge logic and empathy so seamlessly. Humans, too, looked up to him, inspired by the confidence he placed in their abilities and the respect he showed for their ideas. One morning, Lena accompanied Orion to a workshop where humans and Xylarians were developing a device to stabilize the floating platforms during unexpected storms. The engineers had encountered a problem with energy distribution, and frustration was beginning to take hold. Orion approached quietly, observing the situation. He noticed a small, overlooked detail. A connection between two energy conduits that, if adjusted, could balance the system more effectively. Without commanding, he suggested, try adjusting this link. It might harmonize the energy flow better. Inspected, the engineers hesitated, skeptical of such a simple suggestion, but they followed his advice. Slowly, the system stabilized. The energy flowed smoothly, and the floating platforms were secure. The room erupted in quiet applause. Lena watched in awe. The human she had once mocked had not only solved the problem, but had done so in a way that taught others to think differently, to observe more carefully, and to value simplicity as much as complexity. Later that day, Lena floated beside Orion as he walked through the city. She felt compelled to speak. I never imagined someone could change so much without force or authority, she said. You guide, inspire, and lead, yet you do not impose yourself. Orion smiled faintly. I do not lead by force, I lead by understanding. When others see the value of their own ideas, they contribute willingly. That is stronger than any command or weapon. Lena nodded, realizing the truth in his words. She had spent her life learning to assert her superiority, to rely on her training and status. Orion had shown her that true influence came not from domination, but from respect, patience, and empathy. As days turned into weeks, Lena noticed a remarkable transformation in herself. She approached problems differently, listened more attentively, and sought collaboration over competition. Orion's example had opened her eyes to the potential within herself, and she felt gratitude for the lessons he had taught, without even intending to. One evening, the Xylarian queen invited both Orion and Lena to a ceremony, honoring the new alliance between humans and Xylarians. Delegates from many species attended, their eyes filled with curiosity and hope. The queen spoke of unity, creativity, and the strength that came from embracing differences. She highlighted Orion's contributions, acknowledging his unique heritage and his role in bridging two worlds. Orion accepted the recognition humbly. He spoke not of himself, but of the collective effort that had made the achievements possible. The strength of any civilization, he said, comes not from power alone, but from cooperation, understanding, and the courage to value each voice. Together, we can achieve more than any one group could alone. The audience was captivated. Lena felt a deep sense of pride, not only in Orion, but in the potential of humans. She realized that they had underestimated the ingenuity, resilience, and heart of his species for too long. Now, she understood that humanity could inspire greatness across the stars. After the ceremony, Lena and Orion walked quietly through the gardens. The twin moons bathed the city in silver light, and the air was filled with the soft hum of energy from the floating platforms. Lena looked at Orion, her admiration and respect deeper than ever. You have taught me more than I thought possible, she said softly. Orion looked at her, brown eyes steady and calm. It is not only I who teaches. We all learn from each other. Your willingness to observe, to listen, and to grow, that is just as important. Lena smiled. She felt a sense of humility and hope, understanding that the journey of learning and growth was never-ending. The story of humans and Xylarians, guided by understanding and respect, was only beginning. The following weeks were filled with collaboration, innovation, and shared discovery. Humans and Xylarians worked side by side on projects that had once seemed impossible. Bridges were strengthened, devices improved, and new ideas flourished. Orion continued to guide not through authority, but through insight and inspiration. Lena grew more confident in her own abilities, applying the lessons she had learned from him in her own work. One day, as she watched humans and Xylarians building a new energy conduit together, Lena felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The city had changed. Its people had changed. And she herself had changed. The warrior she had once mocked was now a symbol of possibility, reminding everyone that strength came in many forms, and greatness could emerge from unexpected places. She floated beside Orion, who was observing the work quietly. Do you ever wonder, she asked, What might have happened if humans had never reached this city? Orion considered her question. Perhaps the world would have continued as it always did. But every journey begins with a single step. And sometimes, the smallest spark can light the way for countless others. Lena nodded, feeling the truth of his words. She realized that she had been part of that journey, and that she had grown stronger and wiser through her observations and experiences. She understood now that greatness was not limited to one species, one skill, or one civilization. It was a quality that could emerge anywhere, in anyone, given the right circumstances and guidance. As night fell over Xylaria, the city seemed to glow brighter than ever. The floating platforms shimmered. The spires reflected the moonlight. And the air was filled with the quiet hum of life and energy. Humans and Xylarians worked together, sharing ideas, solving problems, and creating a future that neither could have imagined alone. Lena watched Orion, standing calmly among the people he inspired. She thought of the first day she had mocked him, and she smiled softly. The warrior she had underestimated had taught her lessons of patience, observation, empathy, and courage. He had shown her that true greatness was not measured by status or technology, but by the ability to see potential, value others, and inspire cooperation. And in that moment, Lena understood something profound. The journey of understanding, respect, and growth was endless, and the possibilities for humanity and for all who shared the galaxy were limitless. The story of Orion and Lena, humans and Xylarians, had only just begun. And together, they would continue to explore, create, and inspire, proving that even the most unlikely heroes could leave a mark that spanned the stars. The twin moons shone brightly over the floating city, casting their silver light on a world forever changed by understanding, unity, and the quiet strength of one extraordinary human.